Before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to ask that Linda Boych, Executive Vice President Quality and Mental Health and Addictions, Executive Lead Integrated Care, and Executive Lead Niagara COVID-19 Vaccination Task Force. Wow, Linda. Lead us through the acknowledgement of the land that we are gathered on today.
Thank you, Bunny. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabeg peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, it is important to acknowledge the importance of the land which we each are privileged to call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures.
Okay, I'm leaving.
This territory in Niagara is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous peoples. More recently, June has been recognized as Indigenous Heritage Month, a time when we typically celebrate the rich cultural knowledge and strength of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of North America. Sadly, the month of June began by mourning the loss of 215 children whose remains were found in a mass grave at a former residential school in Kamloops, BC. Tragically, this was followed by the discovery of 104 potential graves in Brandon, Manitoba, as well as 751 unmarked graves near the site of the former Maryville Indian Residential School in Saskatchewan. We recognize that reconciliation cannot take place without a sincere acknowledgement of the injustices and harms experienced by Indigenous people. We commit to further building relationships and taking action to advance true reconciliation that will forge a brighter future for all Indigenous peoples, including those living in Niagara. Before we begin today's annual general meeting, I ask that you join me in a moment of silence and reflection. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I'm pleased to call the 2021 annual general meeting of the members of the Niagara Health System to order. I, Bunny Alexander, Chair of the Niagara Health System Board of Directors, pursuant to the bylaws of the corporation, will act as Chair of the meeting of the corporation, and Lynn Guerrero, President and CEO, will act as Secretary for the meeting. Before we begin, I would first like to take this opportunity to congratulate Lynn on her appointment as President and CEO for Niagara Health. As you may know, Lynn has been tirelessly fulfilling this role on an interim basis since early January. The board had the pleasure of officially appointing Lynn to the role on a permanent basis at a board meeting held earlier today. Since joining us in February 2020, Lynn has been instrumental in leading Niagara Health through one of the most challenging global crises of our time. We are thrilled that Lynn has taken on this role permanently and have no doubt that she will lead Niagara Health to a brighter future. To say that this has been another challenging year would be an understatement, as the pandemic has continued to test our resilience and resolve over the past 15 months. Our Niagara Health team of dedicated staff, physicians, medical learners, students, and volunteers continue to go above and beyond to serve our patients in their time of need, not only within our walls, but through virtual means and also at the COVID-19 assessment centers and vaccination clinic. This team is at the forefront and front lines of the fight against COVID-19 and continue to answer the call with grace and compassion. They are demonstrating the essence of Niagara Health's purpose of extraordinary caring, every person, every time, under immense pressures. To our Niagara Health team, we thank you for your dedication and service to our community. We are also humbled by the enormous amount of support from our community throughout this crisis. The generosity and thoughtfulness of the businesses and individuals that have supported our team with care packages, to meals, to free coffees, to words of encouragement has been overwhelming. Niagara truly is one of the best places to live, and we thank our community for your kindness and support. We are hopeful to resume a sense of normalcy, and we look forward to furthering our vision of a healthier Niagara. At this time, I'd like to welcome Jillian Martin, Patient Partnerships and Relations Specialist, to share a patient story with us as an important reminder of our purpose. Jillian.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I just wanted to make sure everyone knows what the Essential Care Partner Program is at Niagara Health. Just a bit of a background that it's a program that we launched this year. We're close to 2,000 Essential Care Partners during this time where we have our regular visitors and those that are essential to patients so that their loved ones and families are still able to provide that care at the bedside. So I was asked to share a story, and it's one that I think about often, and I've kept in touch with this lady recently. She became an essential care partner for her dad, and she just sent me a quick email that I wanted to read to everyone. Her dad was brought to Niagara Hospital at G&G by ambulance in March of this year. It was during COVID restrictions. They were very concerned about access, and then they were told about the ECP program. So she and her brother, eventually both of them were signed up and they became ECPs. I received another form for this lady to be an essential care partner, and I thought it was a duplicate until I saw it was for a different patient. And it turned out this patient was actually, his name was Charles, I'll just give you the first name, and was in her dad's room. They became very good friends, similar ages, came from similar backgrounds, and became very close. So our ECP, her name's Kathy, she became an ECP for Charles as well as her dad. Her dad was discharged and kept in touch with Charles. They kept in touch with him through his journey to Shaver, and are actually meeting him again next week to take a picture for the three of them to send to us. So she has sent me this email that dad shared a room with an 86-year-old gentleman for a couple of weeks, and we all became quite friendly. Charles had expected to be in the hospital for a day or two, and when we met, he had been there for about 3 weeks, and it turned into 4 months. He eventually moved to another ward before dad was discharged, and I was able to have my ECP extended to visit him, bring him supplies, and offer emotional support. His family did not live close by. There are a lot of things that one needs while in the hospital for several weeks: laundry, toiletry, items, like snacks, etc. I was able to provide these things for both patients since I was there daily. The most important thing one needs is the personal connection, and we became that connection for Charles as his family lives out of town. That wonderful connection continues to this day. The ECP program is an essential component of patient care. ECPs are the ears, the translators for the hard of hearing, the interpreters for those where the language is an issue, the informed connection between pre and post-hospital medications and treatments, the provider of personal services that busy nursing staff just can't provide, and most importantly, the loving and caring interaction with family and friends.
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for sharing that fitting story that grounds us in our purpose, providing extraordinary caring every person, every day. So we'll now move into our regular annual general meeting. I'm advised that a quorum is present. Notice of the meeting was provided to all of the members in the manner contemplated by the bylaws. I therefore declare that this annual general meeting of the members of the Niagara Health System is regularly called and properly constituted for the transaction of business. At this time, I'd like to welcome Lynn to offer her remarks as President and CEO.
Thank you, Bunny. So similar to what Bunny had said at last year's AGM, we talked about how it had been a year like no other. And at that time, that was indeed true. Now here we are a year later, and yet again, it has been a year like no other. This has been a 15-month-long roller coaster with the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. We named this year's annual report Courage and Hope to honor the Niagara Health team, our patients and families, our community, and all of our partners for the way we have pulled together to respond to the unprecedented demands of the pandemic. I'm going to mention just a few obstacles that we had to overcome over the past 16 months so that you can get a feel for what the Niagara Health team has been doing. Concerns about shortages of personal protective equipment, managing outbreaks at our hospital sites and at long-term care homes in crisis that we didn't normally interact with. The late arrival of vaccines in Niagara and our advocacy to try to correct this. Surges of COVID-19 cases that threatened to overwhelm the Ontario healthcare system's ability to provide critical care. You'll recall that Niagara Health cared for 73 patients from outside our area, in addition to looking after the needs of our own patients. Pausing scheduled surgeries and procedures several times based on provincial direction and our need to redirect our surgical teams to help care for COVID patients in our ICU. And heartbreaking, our inability to permit family members at the bedside of their critically ill loved ones. The team took all of this in stride and showed their resilience, all while continuing to deliver quality, compassionate care to patients experiencing emergencies, giving birth, receiving cancer treatment, and facing mental health and addiction challenges. So all the things the team needed to do on a regular basis had to continue. Thankfully, virtual care enabled us to safely provide care while limiting the number of people inside our hospital buildings. We provided approximately 60,000 virtual visits over the last year, an opportunity we will expand upon post-pandemic. There is a light at the end of this dark tunnel, and it's shining brighter every day. Getting everyone in Niagara vaccinated with 2 doses is critical to reducing the spread and harm of the virus. As of today, over 65% of Niagara residents have a first dose and over 20% have 2 doses. Half of all vaccine doses in Niagara were administered by the Niagara Health vaccination team at the Seymour Hanna Arena. They started with what they thought was an aggressive plan to administer 1,000 shots a day. But the team fine-tuned the operations to the point where they can now administer 2,500 shots a day. They are doing a truly phenomenal job. When we opened the clinic at the arena in February, we thought it would be meaningful for people to have a place to capture their thoughts on getting vaccinated. The idea struck a chord, and the colorful sticky notes now wrap around the entire arena. There are comments from people about hugging their loved ones again, having family barbecues, and honoring those we have lost. You can read some of these notes on the cover of our annual report. We all recognize the need to balance our COVID-19 response with future-focused strategic priorities. So I'll emphasize a few of our accomplishments from the last year outside of COVID. We achieved key milestones in our planning for the new South Niagara Hospital. We are moving forward with an RFP to procure a new health information system. We have developed new integrated models of care with Niagara partners and regional partners. And we have been leading in research, technology, and in innovation. The positive momentum will continue as we transition out of the pandemic. Johan will share more about our recovery planning in a moment. I'd like to once again acknowledge the team for its dedication and compassion during such a critical time in our history in healthcare. Thank you to the board of directors for your support and for your leadership. I couldn't be prouder to be the president and now CEO of our incredible team at Niagara Health. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you very much. And now I want to welcome Dr. Johan Viljoen to offer his Chief of Staff remarks. Johan.
Thank you very much, Bunny. It's an honor. Before I start, please allow me to once again congratulate Lynn on her appointment. I want to assure her she has 650 doctors right behind her. You can be assured of our support and of our respect. I don't know about you, but if I look back after the past year, it seems a bit of a blur. An enormous amount has happened. We learned about the first case in Wuhan in December of 2019. Weeks later, this virus was known. We knew every bit of its DNA. Months later, 4 or 5 vaccines were in development. And where we stand today, you just heard what Lynn has told us. You know, we started a little slow out of the blocks in Canada and in Niagara, and yet today we are #1 in the G20. We've done a mammoth task, and we are at the absolute brink of a fairly normal summer. So this has been an unbelievable year for us, and we have managed waves and variants like champions. So with Lynn, I'm very proud of what our teams have done over the past 15 months. And I'd like to share a few positives of the last 15 months, starting with the fact that the first time in human history, we identified a disease and found a solution within literally months. That's unheard of. So it's a little strange that, you know, we tend to be a little angry about how things have happened. It's an important time to step back, look at the big picture, and see what enormous strides we have made. The other positives, you know, we always talk about compassionate care. Let's remind ourselves about the good things we saw. You know, we all heard the stories about the ICU nurse who holds the hand of a patient who's died, so that the patient isn't alone. We heard about weddings being planned in our cancer center, and it makes you stop and think that the people here who provide care have hearts, and that is the most wonderful thing to see from my point of view. We'll remember the challenges, but we'll remember these very tender moments. And today it's the time to look back and reminisce what the past year has done, but it's also time to stop and look forward. We have to look forward. The pandemic is almost in the rearview mirror, and we have to start thinking the thoughts of recover, stabilize, and advance. We have to learn from what we went through. The healthcare system is never going to look like it did before COVID-19. Never ever will we go back to those old days, and neither should it. We should be looking forward. The old adage of don't waste a crisis is never more true than now. We've got opportunity lying ahead of ourselves. I don't see it as a challenge, I see it as opportunity. And if we look at the recovery that we are planning as we go ahead, surgical innovation. So you all have heard we've ramped up care. We're back at 75% in some sites and 100% at others. And there's an opportunity to innovate. The government has made some funding available that we can look at innovation, that we don't keep doing what we're doing the same old way, that we look at all those opportunities as what can we move outside of an operating room into other facilities, what we can do virtually. Virtual care became a catchphrase during the pandemic, and we moved to that platform, but it can no longer be a catchphrase. It has to be an integral part of how we provide our care and how we culturally think about providing care. COVID is going to have generations of effects. We all know about the long haulers and people who suffer from cardiac and pulmonary disease immediately following COVID. it's estimated that at least 10% of people who had active COVID will fall into that category. So we are actively, as a system, along with our partners in the region, working on post-COVID care and making sure we could look at that. However, if you are interested in the field of epigenetics, you'll realize that this event, this pandemic, is such a major insult on people that generationally we are going to see the effect on human genetics. And we will see generations of individuals that will suffer effects due to this COVID pandemic. So we are going to need to look at the healthcare system on a far higher and longer level than just the immediate recovery and catching up with backlogs of surgery. We are also involved in the regional level with diagnostic imaging, because you can imagine if we develop backlogs in surgery over the last 18 months, there is a lot of people with disease processes, markedly so cancers, that we don't know what we don't know at the moment. And we have to be very agile and very diligent in identifying these individuals and bring them to our care. So truly today is a time to stop, take stock, realize that we've just gotten through a pandemic, but a quick breather over the summer, and then we have to really get to the grindstone again, because there's a lot of work and a lot of opportunity for us. Because I always remember that 90% of the care that our citizens receive, they receive from us. So we have a great task ahead of us, and we really look forward to your support in being able to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johan. And thank you and all of the physicians for all the work that they've done over the past year. At this time, we need to approve the minutes of the AGM of June of last year and members' meetings from November and January. So if I could ask someone to make that motion, please.
Madam Chair, I'm pleased to move the motion as follows, that the minutes of the June 23rd, 2020 annual general meeting of members and the members' meetings of November, sorry?
No, go ahead.
Meetings of November 24th, 2020 and June 26th, 2021 be approved.
And the seconder?
Chair, I would be happy to second that motion.
Thank you, Barry. Is anyone opposed to that motion? Seeing none, that motion is carried. This time, the next item of business is the presentation of the auditor's report, including the financial statements for the period April 1, 2020 to March 31, 2021. Copies of the financial statements will be available on the Niagara Health website. I will now ask our auditor, Steve Stewart from Deloitte LLP, to present the report. Steve?
Thank you. Thanks. I think it's traditional at this meeting that I don't run through the financial statements in all great detail, because generally not too many people are interested in that. What I can tell everybody on the call who didn't already know this is that I have met with the committee, the audit committee, to review these financial statements, and they were approved. And then they were presented to the board on May 25th, 2021, and they were approved. I can tell you that we completed our audit in accordance with Canadian auditing standards, and we've provided an opinion on the financial statements. And I won't read you the entire opinion because it goes on for 2 pages, but I will read the highlight of it, which essentially says we have audited the financial statements of Niagara Health System, which comprise the statement of financial position as at March 31st, 2021, and the statements of operations, remeasurement losses, changes in net assets, and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the hospital as at March 31st, 2021, and the results of its operations, its remeasurement losses, changes in its net assets and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. Our opinion is a clean, unmodified audit opinion, which as accountants go is the best I can do. And so I'm happy to provide that. I'd like to thank Angela and all her team for all their efforts, consistent with what we had to do last year. And I know I'm not telling you folks anything you don't know. We had to conduct our audit remotely because of the social distancing requirements, which involves an awful lot of uploading of information to websites and databases and such, and that can be a very time-consuming effort. So, Angela and all your team, thank you very much for your help. We got through it on time, and everything went well. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, very much. The next item of business is the appointment of the auditors, and I would ask someone to move and someone to second the resolution.
Madam Chair, I'm pleased to move the following resolution: that the firm of Deloitte LLP be appointed auditors of the corporation to hold office until the next annual general meeting or until a successor is appointed, at a remuneration to be fixed by the directors being authorized to fix such remuneration.
And seconder?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Catherine. Is anyone opposed to that motion? And seeing none, that motion is carried. So, as members are aware, the decrease in the composition of the board was approved in 2020 to assist with quorum requirements as the recruitment of new directors was undertaken. The nominating committee has been successful in filling these vacancies, and as a result, the board has approved the increase back to 15 directors. I would ask someone to move and someone to second the resolution.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the resolution as follows. Whereas the Niagara Health System Board of Directors at its meeting June 29th, 2021, approve an increase in the number of elected directors from 12 to 15, effective June 29, 2021. Be it resolved that the composition of the Niagara Health System Board of Directors be increased from 12 to 15 elected directors effective today.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to second that motion.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone opposed to that motion? Seeing none, that motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is the amendment of the corporate bylaw, reflecting the increase in board size. The corporate bylaw is amended and restated to make only those changes highlighted and presented at the meeting. Copies of the amendments to the corporate bylaw were pre-circulated to members. I'd ask someone to move and someone to second that resolution. Murray?
Madam Chair, I move a resolution as follows. Be it resolved that the corporate bylaw be hereby amended and restated in the form presented.
Thank you, Murray. The seconder? Gervin, could I ask you to second that? Thank you very much. Is anyone opposed to that motion? Seeing none, that motion is carried. It's now in order to proceed with the election of directors. I will note that there was a vacancy on the board as a result of a director choosing not to stand for reappointment in 2020. A members' meeting was held in January to elect Gervin Fearon as the nominee for this vacant position. We are also excited to have 4 new directors joining us today. I'll be speaking more about this a little later on in the post-AGM session. We'll now ask a governance committee member to make the nomination. Mary Lee?
Madam Chair, it gives me tremendous pleasure to move the following motion: that on the recommendation of the Niagara Health System Board of Directors, the following individuals be elected as directors of the corporation for the term set out that I'm about to read. Bunny Alexander for a 2-year term, Bernd Christmas a 3-year term, Marty Germain a 1-year term, Shane Malcolm, a 3-year term. Stephen Murdoch, a 3-year term. Carmen Rossiter, a 3-year term. Rob Tiffin, a 2-year term. Barry Wright, a 1-year term. And Elizabeth Zimmerman, a 2-year term.
Thank you, Mary Lee. Have a seconder?
Madam Chair, Ray Archer, I second that motion.
Thank you, Ray. So there being no further items on the agenda today, therefore the official business of our annual general meeting is concluded. The date of the next annual general meeting of the corporation has been set for Tuesday, June 28, 2022. And the board will now move into the matters of business in our post-AGM meeting. So we'll call the post-AGM meeting to order. We have confirmed that our quorum is present. The first item of business is the election of officers to the board. I'd like to ask the Governance Committee Chair, Barry Wright, to move the motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make the following motion that the following persons be elected or appointed officers of the corporation to hold office for the term provided in the corporate bylaws or until their successors are duly elected or appointed. Officers elected to June 2022, Chair, Bunny Alexander, Vice Chair, Mary Lee O'Neill, President and Chief Executive Officer and Secretary, Lynn Guerrero.
You could have a seconder?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to second that motion.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone opposed to the motion? Seeing none, that motion is carried. So the next item on the agenda is establishment of the committees of the board and approval of committee chairs and vice chairs. Can I have a mover for this motion?
Madam Chair, it's Ray Archer. That on the recommendation of the Governance Committee, the Niagara Health System Board of Directors approves the standing committees and committee chairs and vice chairs for the 2021-22 governance year as presented below. And do you want me to read through all of them or?
No, I don't think it's necessary, Ray, because everyone has the document in their package. So
right.
I think we're good.
Thank
I
you.
need a seconder though.
I will second the motion.
Thank you very much, Marty. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. I'd now like to take a few minutes to introduce you to the 4 new directors joining the board today. Our nominating committee led the extensive recruitment process over the past several months. We are exceptionally pleased with the community interest in Niagara Health and the number of highly qualified people who expressed an interest in serving as a board director. Vern Christmas, who couldn't be with us today, is a recognized and accomplished leader in the Indigenous and business communities. He was the first Mi'kmaq to become a lawyer in Canada and is currently the managing attorney of the Vern Christmas Law Group. He is a member of IG Wealth Management Board of Directors and past member of the Board of Directors of Outside Looking In. He is also a director on 2 Indigenous development corporations. During his career, Mr. Christmas has served as the CEO of the Member 2 Band of Nova Scotia and the Member 2 Corporate Division. He has also negotiated on behalf of many First Nation bands. Shane Malcolm has built a career supporting various aspects of student development and nonprofit leadership and is currently the director, career success for the Onyx Initiative. He has a passion for governance and in addition to serving on the Niagara Health Board, serves on the board of the Boys and Girls Club of Niagara, as well as Niagara College's Board of Directors. He's a proud recipient of a number of prestigious awards, such as the 40 Under 40 Business Achievement Award. Stephen Murdoch is Vice President Public Relations at Enterprise, one of Canada's leading strategic communications and public affairs firms. In his role, Stephen oversees the firm's national public relations practice, working with some of Canada's largest companies and organizations. In addition to his work at Enterprise, Stephen serves as an instructor in the postgrad public relations program at Niagara College. Carmen Rossiter is a chartered professional accountant and a certified director. She has board experience with a number of organizations, including currently serving on the OMA Board of Directors. Carmen is also a member of the Senior Advisory Panel to the Auditor General of Ontario. Prior to her service on boards, Carmen was a partner with PwC and founding managing director for Protiviti Canada. Her experience also includes controllerships and planning positions with Crown Life Insurance, Royal Trust, now RBC Financial, and CIBC. So please join me in welcoming Bern, Shane, Stephen, and Carmen to the board. I think they deserve a round of applause. Welcome to all of you. We're so looking forward. As we welcome new directors, I'd also like to recognize the significant contributions of Charlie Raitt, who left the board earlier this year. Charlie joined the board in 2016. His dedication over the last 5 years, particularly through his leadership roles, has been extraordinary. We thank him for bringing his thoughtful insights and professional expertise to the board table. On a personal note, I want to add that Charlie, in his role as board co-chair for the past year, has been a great support to me as we worked through some challenges and made some very important decisions. He will be missed, and I want to thank him for the time and talent he contributed. We look forward to a time when we can meet in person to properly recognize his contributions. So there's no other business on the agenda. So if I could ask for a motion to conclude the meeting. Catherine?
I move that this meeting be concluded.
Thank you. And a seconder?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Murray. Is anyone opposed? The motion is carried. So the meeting is concluded. Thank you again for being with us today, and we look forward to a very interesting year working alongside all of you. Thank you.